Hi, um, I'm Frank Choi. I'm just gonna show you around where I've lived for the last 25 years around this region, right? You may have seen me before in another video um, that was recorded in Singapore, uh, where I actually went back to Singapore on Chinese New Year. Uh, Not so much to celebrate Chinese New Year, but actually, unfortunately, to attend my mother's funeral. It's quite ironical that after living in this country for 35 years, in fact 36 years right now, coming to 36 years, I've never celebrated Chinese New Year, and the first time I celebrated on the 35th year was to attend my mother's funeral. But anyway, that's another story. That's where Max Chernow, that influencer that you all are familiar with, interviewed me about my experiences in this country. So that gave me an idea about recording where I live, because around October, around this time of the year, this is a very beautiful time of the year. In this part of the country, right? This is Tioga County, which is in the northern central part of the state of Pennsylvania, and just to give you an idea of the size of the county itself, or how big this landscape is compared to Singapore, right? Tioga County itself is about maybe 30 miles north and 30 miles east and west, right? A county would be the equivalent of what you call a constituency in Singapore, right? A constituency in Singapore, and the population here is about just over 40,000, but the size of the county is about 4 times the size of Singapore. So it's really a very sparsely populated area. As you can see, right, a sparsely populated area in the northern central part of Pennsylvania. In fact, that's the most sparsely populated county in Pennsylvania. So anyway, I thought I'll just show you around since the colors are changing. And this is really a beautiful time of the year. Really a beautiful time of year. I'm just standing in basically a farmland up the road where I live, and this is an abandoned apple orchard. There's no farm anymore. You can see apple trees around, right? As I walk further down, right, this is not the peak of autumn yet. The colors will probably peak sometime maybe next week, right? But a week more. But the colors are already changing, as you can see. All right, I'm just walking down the road, enjoying the scene. Giving a brief rundown of this area, this state itself, or at least in this county, right? And as you can see in the background, right? You can see the background there. That's the what I would consider on the edges, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, on the edges itself, there's a dam. That's Kowanaski Dam, right? Kowanaski Dam. There's an artificial lake, Kowanaski Lake, that was created sometime in the late 70s, because this area itself is prone to flooding. Well, not on top of this hill at least. Further downhill down the valley was quite prone to flooding, and the dam itself was built to control the flooding itself. Right? The dam was built to control the flooding itself, and I believe it was completed in 1980. And ever since then, this has become somewhat of a recreational area whereby in the summer, visitors, residents do camp around, enjoy fishing, boating, camping, and even in winter, they do a fair bit of ice fishing if the winter is cold enough and the ice are thick enough, right? So anyway, this is just up the hill where I live. And like I said, if you look at the colors itself, it's quite pretty right now, but it'll probably peak sometime next week. It'll peak sometime next week. Alright, I'm just gonna take a drive down the road and to South Shore Park, where you have a better idea of how Kowanaski Lake looks like. Alright. Okay. It's about just probably a 3-minute drive, not even 5 minutes from here. Right, and I push up the camera in front. All right, this is more like it. Yeah. Kowanaski Lake itself, right? Yeah, you can see the lake itself. The colors have changed more on that part of the hill, so you can see the colors have changed a little bit more. All right, we're turning left. Weather today is about in the 50s. That is in Fahrenheit, obviously. 50, low 50s to 55, and it's a typical weather around this time of year. Typical temperature, not warm, not cold, just nice, right? In the evening, at night, it probably get down to about 32, 33. Fahrenheit, is 0 Celsius. That's sort of freezing conditions, right? And that's what makes the colors change when it gets down to freezing conditions. The leaves starts to die off, and depending on the species of the trees or the plants or the shrubs, right? Some shed leaves earlier, some shed or change their colors earlier, and some much later. So it's uneven, and some change in different variants of colors itself. Right, different variants of colors itself. It's like what I say is a beautiful time of the year, but also some people do complain that it's a bit melancholic because the days are getting shorter. Now this is an exceptionally beautiful day. The skies are blue, it's virtually skyless. But there are also days when it's dreary, it's overcast, and some people do get slightly depressed because of decreasing sunlight. And by the way the season goes, right, summer is over, we're heading towards winter. It's the fall itself, or autumn, and trees or plants, some of them do die off, right? But they'll rebirth again or regrow again sometime in the spring, right? But it's sort of heading towards even darker, shorter days in the winter. So, and that may explain why some people suffer from what you call SAD, SAD, or seasonal affective disorder, which is really caused by lack of sunlight, right? And shorter daylight hours, right? Now I'm at South Shore Park. This is actually a recreational park. There's a lot of subsections of the park. I bring my dog here quite often, at least once a week. She gets to run around, and she really loves it around here. Like you can see, there's hardly anybody around here right now. Well, this is a weekday anyway. You probably won't see anybody around here during the weekday. Not at this time anyway. It's about 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. Alright, 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon itself. Probably later in the afternoon, probably around 4 or 5 o'clock, you'll probably see more people around here after work. But even then, you probably just see a few people around here. Right? Yeah, this is a beautiful time of the year. And like I said, the colors are changing, but it's not the peak yet. It's still not the peak yet. If you see across the lake, there's the north part, right? The colors are much more bold, stronger, partly because I believe that's a colder part of the area, right? The north wind comes from there, and that probably causes the colors to change earlier. Right, and I believe the blazing orange, yellow tree in front is a maple tree, I believe. Right, it's being to shed its leaves itself. Right. So anyway, I'm just gonna park here and just give a brief rundown. Pennsylvania, the Tioga Colony, right? It's a Christian sect that obviously originated from England. I believe it's founded by Edward Fox and Margaret Fell, right? And like many early Christian sects, they are not very popular with the mainstream, and they were called Quakers because there's a term that you tremble in the presence of the Lord. Right, you tremble in the presence of the Lord. So in any case, by the 1600s, by the 17th century that is, even though they are not a mainstream religion, the Quakers themselves had some very important members. And one of them was none other than William Penn Sr., the father of William Penn, who was actually an admiral and a businessman, and who had very close ties to King Charles. Right? He is a good friend of King Charles. Okay? Now, the younger William Penn himself, although he's remembered in history today as a very dignified, respectable statesman, his younger days were actually quite different. You know what I mean? William Penn himself was a bit of a hellraiser, right? In his young days, right? He did a lot of, I would say, more than just growing up thing. But he was very outspoken, full of hubris. And what happened here was that, let me say this, right? A hellraiser, all right? Okay. In in the Singapore context, or what you call the Hokkien or Fukien vernacular, you call that a pai kia, literally meaning bad boy. But he's more than just a bad boy. He was actually a hell raiser, and he said even some seditious things about the king, right, that could easily have his head chopped off. Fortunately for him, his father was a close friend of the king. So the father had to do something about him, and so sent him away to the New World, right, in what is present day the New England region, and also basically Northeast, around this region itself, the Northeast itself, to get away from the problems that it's causing back home, right, saying seditious things about the king himself that would easily cost you your life or your head. But like I said, because his father was a very good friend of the king. Now, how good was he a friend? When his father passed away, right, when his father passed away, it was discovered that the father was not just a good friend, but he was a creditor to the king. The king actually borrowed money from him, right? And so King Charles said that, you know, rather than return you the money that I owed your father, he said to the younger Penn, I'd rather return it in the form of a land grant. A land grant, and the only condition is that you name it after your father, and that's how the last name Penn became the basis of the colony of Pennsylvania. Now, William Penn himself, being a Quaker like his father, right? And the Quakers are generally very tolerant, peace-loving people, right? So during his time in the early days of the colony itself, and Pennsylvania was under William Penn, right? It was a very diverse, pluralistic society where different religions were allowed to practice, different denominations, different sects, even though they were originally mistreated and not mistreated by the mainstream Church of England. But by the time they had their own colony, they were more than happy to have their own colony to practice their religious faith in peace. And yet they were very accepting of other people's religion, so much that even Judaism itself was allowed to be practiced in later in the city of Philadelphia, right? So in 1681, that's when Pennsylvania received its charter, right, to be a colony, right? The charter itself, the meaning of the word charter itself is obviously a very old-fashioned term. It's just basically a permit or a license to start its own colony itself, right? In 1681. And in 1682, he laid the groundwork for the city of brotherly love, or what later will be known as Philadelphia, right, in 1682 itself. Okay, in fact, the rectangular streets, the grid-like fashion of the streets of Philadelphia will become the standard for later cities to copy, right? Later cities copy itself. Now, William Penn, when he was in charge of Pennsylvania, as far as we know, right, he was a very respectable statesman. Very different from the Hellraiser or the Pike that we knew many years earlier, right? Many years earlier. Now, his reputation has some credence to it, because what we do know is that even William Penn recognizes that the land actually belonged to the Native Americans, to the Indians, right? And whenever Europeans appropriate their lands, he made sure that they were compensated accordingly, right? Accordingly itself. And because of his respect for the Native Americans, is equal treatment of Native Americans. Now let me say something about the Quakers themselves, right? They're pretty progressive in the fact that at that time they're very tolerant of other denominations, other faiths, and unlike the Puritans, right, they actually gave women a much more equal standing in the church, right? So you can see why that have influenced William Penn in his treatment of the Native Americans. Now, in any case, largely because of his respect and equal, or at least dignified treatment of the Native Americans, the Indians around this region, during his time, there were no major problems or battles with the Native Americans. Right? It's only after he passed away then that you had some of the major skirmishes and clashes between European arrivals, mostly from, not just from Europe, but from the New England area, from what is present-day New York, Massachusetts, and all that, that the Native Americans here were being removed. Right? And this is a sad history of the Native American culture and history as more and more Europeans arrive from the east or from Europe. They get pushed further and further away, right? So in any case, William Penn, as long as he was alive, the Native Americans were respected and well treated, and there were no major battles, right? Now let me say that Pennsylvania at that time was a much larger Pennsylvania than it is today. It also includes the present-day Delaware, the present state of Delaware. It was only after he died that Delaware itself, the 3 counties of Delaware, complained that they were not being attended to for their concerns by the power brokers in Philadelphia, by the assembly in Philadelphia. So later on, I believe it was in the early 1700s, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, after William Penn passed away in 1703, Delaware got its charter to be a separate colony. And that's where the 3 southern counties south of Philadelphia broke away to become the colony of Delaware, or today the present state of Delaware itself. All right. So anyway, that's just a short history of Pennsylvania, and I'm walking around South Shore Lake on a beautiful afternoon. Right. So anyway, I'll end here. This is just a good start to the beautiful season. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.